guess I just wondering where
the Ontario Autism Coalition YouTube channel. It's kind of dopey with lives. It doesn't let me from a phone do much before it starts. So all it says is Ontario Autism Coalition. But you see later on, and if you wait until maybe about 11, I'll have a chance to. This is pretty good. I've got a couple of lav mics. One by the speaker, another one that's good detaching that speaker. But it sucks. The noise goes out and they do all of those fun things. But, you know, it's still good.
Stop 2 pages per.
I just put all my crap on here, so yes, it's under live events and it is actually streaming now. I hate listening to stuff.
Everyone, my name is David Foster, chair of the Special Education Advisory Committee of the Toronto District School Board, and I'm honored to call call to order tonight's monthly meeting. Before we get into the formalities or the festivities, I should say, I'd like to first call on my wonderful vice chair, Jordan Lastly, to my right and left, to do the land acknowledgement. Please rise if you are ready. We have a couple of formalities to go through before we get to the hearing from people who come to speak to us. Please indulge me for us for a couple of minutes. I need to ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Somebody bring the motion to approve the agenda. There we go, a seconder. All in favor? We're okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any conflict of interest to disclose in relation to meetings, agenda items? I am going to defer approval of the minutes of the March meeting because there are some things that I wanted in there that is kind of out. I want to see if we can resolve that at the next meeting. So our meeting is the meeting we chair's report. And I want to just take a few minutes of your time because I want to get right to our speakers. Let me begin by thanking everybody for being here. Thank the staff, we've got family lives, and the day job of the TDSB here this evening. I want to thank all of the SEAC members who are volunteers for about a minute. And I want to thank the presenters who come to present to us and others to watch. I have invited the provisionally appointed supervisor to this meeting. Is Mr. here and Bristol online? I'm not seeing any indication. I regret that he is not here. I think we need to hear a reply for him to hear from you. I also want to update on one matter that will be of interest. In January, the Director of Education read a statement out about a resumption on general returns of a special education review that the board is conducting. I asked for a copy of it, and staff were not here to give it to me, but I'm going to share it with you. I filed a freedom of information application for it. The board declined that. They refused to vote in various exceptions. In that application, I asked for a whole document for which the Department of Education read. I had today mailed in a new freedom of information application. We simply asked for the pages for the correct back to us. And I regret having to go through these steps, but we have to. Let's proceed to tonight's activity. For those of you who come to speak to us, who the heck is SEAC? What's a SEAC? Under provincial regulations, every publicly funded school board must appoint a special education advisory committee, or SEAC. They members are really drawn from three categories. They are representatives of associations of parents of a child with special education needs. And we have people here from various of those representatives. I myself represent, I'm here representing the Ontario Parents of Visually Impaired Children, for example. And we are nominated by our organization, the TDSB SEAC. sense of that accommodation as they are required to. The second category are parents of children with special educational needs. Within the board community, but who are not representing the organization, they're community representatives. There are also alternative representatives who come to our meeting and can speak at any time, but only vote if the main rep from their association is not here. So they are here today, either in person or online. And finally, a certain number of trustees can serve on our committee. We had three. They have been removed from operational, any of their operational powers by the province, and therefore they are no longer members of this committee. And no employee of the board is allowed to be a member of CF according to provincial regulation. And these are all people who volunteer their time. Our job here is to identify for TDSB areas where there would benefit from improvements in how education is delivered to children with disabilities or special education needs. We get right into the nitty-gritty, and it's important to realize the regulation creates a sufficient loss of key advice and paraphrasing, make recommendations about the development or delivery of special education, including on the special education budget and the special education plan, both of which the board is required to consult. We do that by hearing from people like you, from hearing from staff, and from making recommendations. And we've done that. Sometimes our input is given in just formal conversation. And there are times we address something that we formulated in a specific recommendation. But for trustees, we can present them to the trustees. Without the trustees, we can present them to the staff. I asked the superintendent to be able to speak with him about that as part of longer discussions. But unfortunately, there have been decisions made on our recommendations by the supervisor without an opportunity to meet with him before to discuss it before making his decision. That's where we are. And we have a shared concern. We have different views on lots of issues, but one shared concern, and that is we want to work together and do come up with the strong recommendations and advices we can for food education for our kids. Now, let me talk to you about briefly. You wonder, what are we going to do with what you tell us today? Well, what you're going to accomplish are two things. There's one thing we can't investigate a particular incident. A student was denied something that offended something she had, or whatever. That's not within what we can do. But what we can do for this reason is, one, we can listen to you all and take for what you told us recurring patterns and identify areas of priority. We did this year and a half ago, and it really helped guide us on what needs to be done. But the second thing is, we're going to be talking not only to us as volunteers, but industry more online are a number of senior TDSB staff who have been introduced themselves in just a moment. And if you're here, feel free informally to have a chat with them. It's good to talk with people. But as well, this is a chance for all of us to hear what you have to say. Let me just express a couple of ground rules. These were all communicated with you today. So the ground rules have been stern. It's not meant to be. Number one, we ask you not to mention any child's name. In fact, when we call on you, we're going to call on you by your first name and ask you to just identify your first name. Just to respect individual privacy. This is public. But we don't need to call on you by name, even though we're calling on you. Second, we ask you not to mention any individual TDSB staff. They're not here to answer. They're not here to respond. And frankly, we don't need to hear a child's name or a staff member's name. So learn from what you have to say. Whether what you have to say is gracefully reason we say that is we don't want indirectly to identify or possibly to identify child. And I know some of you may be wanting to speak about not the conduct of the school, if you probably need to improve, but rather be concerned that the school is maybe enrollment reduced or they eventually be closed. I'm not going to be picky. We all know what those needs are. So that is something that we're going to be flexible about as people a chance to speak. Because identifying the school is not in any way going to criticize any of the staff there. To the contrary, I expect from the parents we've heard from the past is just praise them. Our numbers are on the table. We'll listen to each of you to squeeze in all our asking to keep 3 minutes if you can. I'm not going to be brutal, but I want to make sure everyone gets heard. If the meeting needs to go past 9 o'clock, I suspect it will keep going. We're going to hear from the people in the room first, just so they can get back home. As well, there is one matter I want to deal with really quickly, and then we have us introduce people, and then we're going to get on people from our committee staff. And that is this. Our meetings used to be live streamed by the TDSB. The TDSB has been instructed by the province not to do so any longer. There's no indication that the TDSB wanted it, likes it. They have to follow those instructions. We understand. That applies only to the TDSB. However, because this meeting is hybrid, there are some people attending right now on Zoom who are going to be speaking. We were advised only today by TDSB staff that they will not be permitted to be in the Zoom room. They will be in the waiting room until they speak. They will be allowed in to speak to us, and then they will be removed from the room. That is not the approach that I think is appropriate, fair, and respectful. Don't fight our concerns, as have a couple of us, the staff, and I want to take up time on it. However, I have written a brief motion, which I'm going to have Jordan read. I know that there's going to be objection from staff, which I'm going to voice. Then you're simply going to, I hope, have a mover a second. I received emails from a number of members of the committee all supporting this, so I want to get through this quickly so we can get on to the delegation.
Whereas TDSB senior officials will see that on the day set for a public forum for hearing the voices of parents, that those attending on Zoom must stay away from the present, and thus they may not hear any other presenters. And whereas CF wishes all presenters at its April 13, 2026 meeting to be able to hear all other presenters if they wish, just as those attending in person are free to do so. And whereas that there is no compelling reason for TDSB to prevent presenters who attend virtually from hearing other presenters, and whereas TDSB should accommodate many additional burdens that parents with disability and special education needs often shoulder, CF therefore recommends that TDSB should permit anyone who is only participating as a presenter April 1st, 2026, TDSB SEAC Parents Voices meeting by Zoom to the meeting to hear other presenters before their turn to speak and after their turn to speak if they wish.
All right, first have a mover of the motion.
Chair, before it's put on the floor, and I speak to your motion.
This is Luis Risco, who is the Associate Director of TDSB.
Thank you, Chair Policy. Members of SEAC, I want to, before it's put on the floor, just as I shared with you before the meeting, while I'm sharing the motion, my interpretation is that this is an operational motion. This speaks to the manner in which we welcome delegates, and as such, if approved, I will not, on behalf of staff, be able to action the motion. Thank you.
All right. My own response is that there's nothing in the regulations that create us, limiting us to not pass motions on anything that staff has done to be operational. So I'm prepared to accept it as a motion in order. Do we have a motion as a motion to the motion?
And we don't have the motion up, we were just sent the motion a few minutes before the meeting, so I think Jordan, you can see it, read it again. That's what Jordan, because it's small on the screen.
I just want to say, the first paragraph, it mentions how voice mentions how in the meeting room and until they present, what it doesn't say is that it will be removed from not having the opportunity. So, you said that, not very good.
Okay, compared to a teacher-friendly amendment, it said that they would be, in the waiting room until they speak, and the end of what it is, and then removed from the Zoom meeting after they speak. Totally happy to see extremely friendly and Richard was thrilled. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. All right, I'm gonna, we treat that as passed. Let us, proceed now. I'm gonna have, Jordan call each speaker. And because that fan is off, he's getting bothered, so if anybody like me, subject or slam on, feel free to take it off the side of it. Go for it.
Number one is virtual.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to give you a idea of my daughter's journey in the last year. It kind of highlights the challenges of being such a gifted status when you're not within the TDSB. My daughter joined the TDSB school in grade 4 as she was not in grade 3. She did not have access to the gifted testing. She went through grade 4 and 5 in that TDSB school, and she went through a series of teachers. They thought she may have ADHD. There were comments that she just was not engaged. But there's really no follow-up for this. So on our own accord, when she was in grade 5, we went to our pediatrician to get tested for ADHD, and she didn't have that. And our pediatrician, actually developmental pediatrician, did a test, a modified test for giftedness, and said, she likely is gifted. He's trying to recommend testing with the TDSB. Unfortunately, all of this took place, as I mentioned, in the summer of her grade 5 year. And due to the challenges that she had with teachers and then schools and bullying, we made a decision to put her out to her in a smaller school, not knowing that she actually was gifted. We spoke to the principal at her home school, trying to make a decision if to pull her out or keep her. And we were assured that because she was in the TDSB, this was her home school. Even if she left the school, she could have testing done privately, and that would be assessed by the TDSB, and then the ball would be started to get her into a gifted program. We went on our own accord, paid for the gifted testing by a psychologist who's a former TDSB teacher who was recommended by the principal. When we went back to the principal, we were told that the rules had now changed, that she needs to now re-enroll in the TDSB to have that test looked at and then go through the gifted program. So we were now stuck. We're mid-year in grade 6. We had to make a decision between taking our daughter out of the smaller private school with 18 children, putting her back in a school where she was bullied before with 30 kids in her class, simply to be assessed for giftedness. We made a gut-wrenching decision and took her out and put her back in the TDSB. She's just had her IPRC, and she's been deemed gifted. My comments stems from the fact that one, when you miss that window in grade 3, the opportunity to retest it isn't there. And two, when you're out of the TDSB and you have this testing done, it seems that and in my daughter's case in particular, it seemed to counter that teachers who already knew her when she was there were unable to use this test and then assess her independent of being re-enrolled in the TDSB. So those are my comments that I wanted to make. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sean, thank you so much. And I don't want the fact that we're going to move on people to suggest or imply anyway that we're not listening and taking it very seriously, taking notes.
staff members, and school board staff. Thank you, Pat. My name's Jennifer, and I'm the mother of a 7-year-old gifted boy who's born with TDSB. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the barriers faced by primary age gifted children with TDSB and to make 2 requests to SEAC in terms of recommended changes to the special education plan. So just to be clear, I am not asking you to be on this case or any operational matters. We're dealing with that separately. But I will give you some background about my son's case, because what happened to him is illustrated with barriers faced by the special education plan and TDSB's interpretation of that plan for all primary age children. My hope is that the CS work, we remove those barriers going forward so that primary age children can properly accommodate TDSB. So, for context, my son was in the fall, grade 1. He was 6 years old at the time that he underwent a psychological assessment by a licensed psychologist. She administered a Western intelligence scale for children with addiction, or WISC-5, which is the same test used by the TDSB as predictors. The WISC-5 is validated scientifically for use in children as young as 6 years old. And his score on the WISC-5 was an full scale IQ of 140 points from a 99.6 percentile. The general ability to get to 99.5 percentile. The psychologist's conclusion was that the results of the assessment indicate that my son meets the criteria for gifted exceptionality as defined by the Ontario Certification. She further stated that an IEP is needed to prepare him and to ensure his well-being and success. The TDSB's response to the psychological report shared with them was an absolute refusal for that finding was gifted because of his age and the refusal to provide an IEP. We are now here, almost a year and a half after we had the psychological assessment and provided it to the school, and he still does not have an IEP for our education. I just want to pause here at this juncture and reiterate what happened here and just emphasize how unnatural it is. We have a regulated health professional providing assessment, saying that a child which is in the Ministry of Education and the fact that the TDSB could then refuse to identify that exceptionality on our accreditation threshold is frankly shocking. Under Section 8 of the Committeee Education Act states that the minister shall ensure that all exceptional children in Ontario have available to them Act regulations, appropriate special education programs, special education services without payment of fees by parents. And for these purposes, the minister shall A, require school boards and implement procedures for early and ongoing education of learning abilities and interests. Our position is that it is a clear violation of the TDSB's duty to provide early and ongoing education to refuse to identify children until age 8. What they are doing under the guise of the special education plan is the opposite of the early education required by the Act. It is delaying education. So my first request in regards to the special education plan is that the age grade threshold based on education be removed. The Ministry of Education and Education is that unusually next to reduce general responsibility that requires the education to reduce experiences of depth and breadth beyond the normal commodity for regular school program to satisfy the level of educational potential. Note this definition does not include any age or grade threshold to be met. Thus, the combination of the Ministry of Education definition and the statutory right to early ongoing education under the Act means that gifted children have a right to identify as soon as they are assigned to reliable tests demonstrating their abilities.
You can just wrap up because I want to just make sure we get it on it. Is there an additional recommendation?
Yes.
Go for it.
So the second recommendation is to clarify that modification of the override is being from higher or lower grade levels. Because the Ministry of Education policy says that modifications can be above or below applications, the position taken by the TDSB in that one application will be lower. And this is the barrier to my son, who on the Y Act, the Russian Individual Achievement Task, was clearly performing 2 years above spirit level in many areas. So for giving children with TDSB, I would like to clarify in the education plan that modifications in IEP include modifications from higher.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now, I failed to do something I committed to do, and I'm glad that I did now. Let's just go around the room very quickly, have each of us introduce ourselves. Just indicate whether you're a SEAC member, your name, your association, you represent one. And in case of staff, you just give your name, and your staff, and starting with my gentleman on my right.
My name is Jordan Ross, I'm the chair, and I'm the representative of SEAC.
Ready, Senator two. All right. Going over to my right.
My name is Tracy Reagan, and I'm the representative for Community Living Toronto.
My name is Aileen Chan. I'm the alternate representative for Community Living Toronto.
Mr. Carter, representative of the Association of Toronto.
Laura Green, representative for Blue Action. My name is Anne Blanchette, representative for Representation.
My name is Jessica Lewis, and I'm the alternate representative for the Association of Right.
My name is Dave Murray, and I'm the alternate for Blue Action.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Annie Palmer, the executive superintendent for special education and inclusion.
Good evening, my name is Elise Driscoll, I'm the associate director here at TDSB. Welcome to our delegates and members of the public this evening. I'm to share policy to mention something just for you, sir. Jordan has meeting at 10 o'clock, 3 minutes, so we have to do 3 minutes for Jordan to be sworn in chair and chair policy. That is at 10 o'clock as Mr.
Thank you. My name is Stacey Tucker. I'm the director of education.
Good evening, my name is Sean Bernard. I'm co-chair for legislature.
And you're Bernard for OntarioAutismCoalition.
And just for those of you who are new here, this is a bit of a family reunion for all of us. One of us is COVID and has seen each other. All right, our next speaker. Number 3.
Before my time begins, can I ask you in the delays of the committee to go over timings of the next slide? Since I actually time.
Okay, so what you can do?
Good evening, committee members and community. As I before you see status and legislation, we will once again to advocate for children and for all students with disabilities in our schools. My daughter, now 16, has sensory neurobiological hearing loss, ADHD, and dyscalculia. From kindergarten, I taught her to be placed in the closed classroom, something that should have been obvious. It took over a year around the stage of 10. In year 8, she had proved her eligibility for the special education program in TDSB, as she was deemed not deaf enough. Since grade 5, she's taken it upon herself to educate her peers, her teachers, and staff meetings on issues with accommodations and how these do not and cannot make up for this experience of what being hard hearing actually feels like. As a call on CDC mentioned morning, I stated that I teach her on both the ground and serve as a merely potential school administrators boards, but fall short of any quantifiable measure for services. I have spent years drafting and redrafting these documents, and educating staff advocating for proper implementation. I have had to purchase visual side cameras, fidget toys, chair bands, and diapers from the planning books, discussing font resources, discussing resources, noise canceling headphones, etc. to get to schools in order to be able to actually use them. I provided copies copies of SMART goals, age-specific accommodation, executive function checklists, student teacher and parent short and long-term planning tracker sheets with measurable time results and data results. Yet, none of these crucial methodologies proven to be effective have been implemented to date. My doctor is horrified by the requirements of teaching students being so low, yet most are not meeting actual grade level curriculum expectations. Lowering the bar creates a learning helplessness and lack of achievement that persists beyond school. These students are far less likely to go on to secondary education, more prone to mental illness, addictions, and rely more heavily on government-funded programs for their livelihoods. Lowering expectations is not the answer. Because our achievement with direct instruction by qualified professionals is. My son, now 13, should be in grade 7, but has not attended school a single day this year. He has multiple diagnosed disabilities: ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, low proficiency, and memory, each recognized under the law as distinct. Yet, the board qualifies these as only one, a learning disability, and will not recognize ADHD or odd ADHD as a life-altering disability. This is a charter violation which needs to be addressed. He is bright, very bright, creative, and a learner. But vast majority of his educators have lowered the bar, made minimal accommodations to meet board's accessibility threshold, and ensured that he not be a candidate for direct instruction or simply improving learning. Despite comprehensive psychoeducational reports and various working and assessments, as well as his own input about his needs and resources, articles of research that have been provided, they have been provided with him where he is at, he has been ignored. Staff has falsified diagnostic testing, graded incomplete work, altered grades and comments that best the narrative of the student who is not struggling, and denied improved support such as psychology, OT, CYC intervention, etc. The board claims it provides for all students and creates student success documents and policies around special education, yet will not take accountability for these actions, nor answer to direct pointed questions around tier placements, diagnostics, staff training, IP implementation, and more. This year, Rush should attend the TDSB alternative school to accept the news. However, his father blocked this. The board took the position that this is a parental issue, and has offered nothing but suggestion in return to the same school he has refused since September 4th to attend. No occupational therapy, no social work, psychological services, or child before intervention, all of which are part of the board's own policies on at-risk students and mental health concerns. He disclosed suicidal ideation and intrusive thoughts and was ignored. Instead, he spent his pressure to get back to school. They have witnessed 13-year-old become more and more adamant in their need to be heard and understood, and more affected by the lack of respect and dignity afforded to him in his own lived experiences as a student. The board has abstained from their duty to advocate on his behalf, and instead remain neutral when neutrality is not an option, as educators are bound by law to protect and advocate for the well-being of all children. This is neglect. Disabilities requiring sustained research-led special education supports are not rare, yet they are minimized or treated as obstacles. Students who need accommodation are often cast aside, while boards hide behind policy language. The proof is in the outcomes. My daughter's experience shows failure to specialized programming. My son is expected to sit in advanced back in his system that is completely incompatible with his needs. Both my children present as neurotypical for the most part, mainstream students, but their daily struggles are invisible. No child should be pushed through an educational pipeline and made feel that their talents and skills are merely good enough. I question why the programmers need immense investment, significantly smaller class sizes, individualized instruction, creativity and innovation, and more funding for students than any other program. While there are divergent students, many of which are gifted, are relegated to resource rooms and given rudimentary, keep busy tasks. Most neurodivergent students require exactly this to thrive, and yet funding is reserved for gifted education programs. The lack of accountability, universal instruction tools, methodologies, diagnostic consistency, regular monitor check-ins, and case conferences that are not repeat or SST or IPRC
do think improvements can be made to special education development facilities in a number of ways. One is that my clinical experience and parents don't really understand their children's disabilities very well. Doctors are not going to be in the best position to provide that education. The school is. Number two, kids with special needs often need smaller learning environments to thrive. Many of our high schools are 1,500 students, 2,000 students to expect a child with a developmental disability to go to a small classroom within a school of 1,500 to 2,000 people and feel like they belong and be nurtured and be allowed to thrive. I don't think that's a realistic expectation. Third is that we should always be thinking about individual strengths and what the future is going to hold for this individual. Everyone deserves meaningful work and meaningful activities in their life. There needs to be a plan for everyone after they turn 21 so that they continue to have meaningful engagement with their community. I think the schools play a big role in doing that. So, just to summarize, education, ensuring there's still small schools available for kids with developmental disabilities, and third is thinking about things like vocational placement and in a very proactive way so that no child with disabilities left behind and doesn't have something meaningful to do when they finish school and be strong.
Thanks very much.
Hi, my name is Jeff. I'm a grade 12 student in the TDSB. I was in the MID program for middle school and also the start of grade 9. It was very important that I go to a small school that specialized in working with kids with special needs because I was very sensitive and scared of loud noises and busy places, and I don't think I could have learned as well or made friends if I went to a large, busy high school. I understand that the high school I started at is no longer accepting grade 9 students and is at risk of shrinking or shutting down. That would be horrible. I think that the TDSB says not enough people are interested in the school. I cannot believe that. The TDSB doesn't encourage people to go to that school. My parents had to fund it for me, even though it was the closest high school to where I live and met my needs at the time. I made lots of friends there, and I was able to switch from the MID program to the credit program. I was also supported in being a leader in the school. I did announcements and helped run my school talent show. I actually had to move schools in grade 11 because my old school did not offer enough classes for me to graduate. Luckily, there was a small high school I could attend and will help me this year and go to college next year. I'm worried if my old school shrinks, my friends there won't have enough different courses for them to attend to graduate. My old school supported lots of students with developmental disabilities. I think it would be very scary for them to have to go to a big high school. They also want to get the same opportunities to develop their confidence, be a school leader, make friends, and be supported to achieve their academic potential in the big high school. If I went to an MID program in a big high school, I doubt that I would be graduating this year. Have as many friends as I have and being going to college this next year. I would probably have been too scared to go to school to do as well as I have. Please support kids with minor developmental disabilities by continuing to have smaller specialized high school. I know many of my friends from my old school are not comfortable speaking out like this, so I am doing this for them as well as other kids like me. Thank you for listening.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and on to our next speaker.
Thank you, Jeff, for 6
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity
These are not extras. Students like my son, these are skills that determine whether you will be able to live some level of independence as an adult. And for the first time, this is a path where he could complete high school, maybe even earn a diploma, possibly transition to a college program or a supportive workplace through work. That future feels within reach for him, but it is entirely dependent on you remaining in an environment that works for you. If he is not required to move into a large mainstream high school environment with supports that structure, that specialized understanding do not exist in the same way, I'm deeply concerned that he will get lost. Not just academic, but politically. And if that happens, there is a real chance he will not finish high school. And if he does not finish high school, he will not make the license to succeed as an adult. At that point, we are no longer talking about education, we're talking about long-term dependence on our family and eventually on other systems. And from a fiscal perspective, that simply does not make sense. The cost of supporting someone does not aid skills and through social assistance, healthcare, and other services. Far exceeds the cost of keeping them engaged in the right educational environment now. I only have a few moments. This is not a saving, it is a delay and an escalation of cost. So I ask you to consider this carefully. Right now, my son is on a path towards independence, towards dignity, towards contributing in his own way. And that path is fragile. Then it depends entirely on access to a specialized environment he is in today. That environment is taken away, the likelihood of reaching that future drops dramatically. I would respectfully ask that you pause any decisions that disrupt programs like this. Take the time to fully understand not just the numbers, but the human elements. Because for students like my son, this is not credit progress. It is about whether they are given tools to build a life, whether that opportunity might lead to success.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting us all to be here. It's great to see everybody. So my name is Michelle, and I've been with the TDSB for almost 17 years. You know me well. I've been a member of this committee for 7 years. Before that, I was a member of PI, and I've been a trustee before. I will say, after 17 years, under ministry supervision, this is the first time that I believe the TDSB has ever been stopped here because student preferences to disabilities. Our child has amazing teachers. I don't want to say how much she loves them, but she doesn't like school. It's boring. I've seen our little school grow from 500 students to over 1,000 students, and in that time, I've also seen the number of support staff cut in half. This is not because the needs have gone away. This is because there is no funding. That is squarely on the ministry's shoulder, but that does not. It also reflects the lack of priorities in keeping this here. The ministry is wrong. The depth of the severity of unmet needs this year for students with disabilities, mental health, and socioeconomic needs have resulted in repeated and serious safety issues in school. Sadly, families have only been able to get attention from the lack of resources by repeatedly involving the media and the broader community advocacy this year. This year, for the first time, the TDSB has, through their actions, directly hurt my child. The TDSB decided to fire or suspend 10 teachers, the principal and a vice principal from our child's school, including my child's amazing teachers, over a poorly managed change in teaching model. Yes, it was that bad. Those suspensions cost my child and 300 other students weeks of lost learning and disruption for most of the year. This decision has negatively impacted school climate and therefore worsened safety. It has made parents afraid. For my child, this has also resulted in significantly increased anxiety and now school refusal. We are paying out of pocket for external counseling, not because, despite the efforts of the new principal, the TDSB cannot provide a time when my child might be able to access social work and counseling that they need. These are not the actions of the school board that I really love. These are the actions of a ministry that has failed to put students first. Indeed, nobody of the TDSB so far has bothered to own up to the negative impacts of these decisions on my school and my community. And I know from my years that this is not unique to my child's school. If I were to say that this year my child, my partner, and myself have faced a complete lack of response until recently from the TDSB. My emails as a parent went unanswered. My emails to the superintendent went unanswered. Our supervisor went unanswered. Our emails to the students and parent support office went unanswered. And we were told recently that there's a 100% response rate for families, which is completely untrue. So our recommendations. The TDSB must return to prioritizing equitable outcomes for students and equitable access to programs and resources. Poverty and diverse identities are interlinked with disability. By limiting equitable access to programs and limiting funding for model schools or learning opportunities approaches, the TDSB is disproportionately targeting students and families with disabilities. The TDSB must stop allowing resource staff to be pulled away from students with needs in order to cover or supply teachers. This disproportionately impacts students with disabilities and has been increasing every year. My child has had almost no resources this year. The TDSB needs to stop citing minimal ministry compliance and provide the necessary support and staffing that reflects student needs. I know too many families who are directed into ISD classes because they are told by their school we won't be able to support your child. True inclusion requires the appropriate staffing, and it really doesn't matter if the ministry doesn't want to recognize this as the duty of the education system. The ministry is decades out of date with respect to the needs, the real-time needs of students with disabilities. Human rights for students are not being served by complying with outdated standards. The TDSB must resume the collection and publication of data regarding student needs so that both families and educators can properly support students. The TDSB must provide transparent communication with families. That transparency has all but ended under supervision, and the parent support office is at best a joke and at worst gaslighting families. The TDSB must resume special education review in its full format because data collection is critical. The TDSB is obligated to improve student outcomes, and that is not accomplished by sticking with the status quo or blind compliance with inadequate ministry. The TDSB has been a leader in education best practices since amalgamation, and that leadership should not be undone by supervision where a district does not understand or care about what's best for students.
My name is Tanya. I knew nothing about giftedness when my kids were born. It wasn't mentioned by my eldest son's teachers in elementary school. So when he became increasingly withdrawn, we developed explained to my husband and I were concerned our pediatricians, and these were caused by anxiety, and the symptoms disappeared the day after we pulled it out to homeschool. We homeschooled child A to high school. When he was 13, he was tested for giftedness at the suggestion of a friend who was a teacher. He was placed in a congregated Digit high school program. Again, there wasn't anything presented by the school or his teachers about what giftedness meant. He was fortunate to be a curious academic child who grabbed the sports, clubs, electives like other peers and still teachers had to try. Child B wasn't so lucky. He was twice exceptional. He was gifted with ADHD and he could understand many things quickly, but couldn't execute tasks as expected. Most were too simple or too slow, so he would misbehave, disengage, seek attention. He sensed teachers didn't like him, and he couldn't see it first for schoolwork, so he turned to substances to calm his body, quiet his thoughts, and numb the feelings of worthlessness that grew over time in school. Since grade 9, child B has been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, borderline personality disorder, and hospitalized multiple times for suicide attempts and self-harm. At 18, he dropped out of high school and took a signing job in city confidence. He flourished at the work, fast-paced, free of problem-solving, concrete outcomes, high expectations. The demands of working full-time and living on his own was too much. His mental health collapsed, and he moved home. This week, he finishes his last 2 credits at an adult high school. With the judgment and shame from past
grossly inadequate to meet this needs to develop healthily. For child C, the same is true. Gifted and autistic, he lasted 6 months in grade 9 before he moved to the day program at St. Kitts and a residential therapeutic program for 18 months. Thankfully, that program addressed the depression and trauma that burdened him, taught him the self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-assertion skills that he needed, and helped him understand how his unique wiring impacted his experience of the world and his peers. The label gifted is misleading. My kids are not privileged, unbreakable, or inevitable successes. Their gift affects their entire being. They absorb extraordinary amounts of information unintentionally and it can be overwhelming to process. For my kids, this made school confusing, unmanageable, and damaging. The narrow scope of current high school gifted programs contributes to this problem. With the singular intention of delivering academic work at increased depth and breadth, without requiring training for teachers and unique traits of a gifted mind, the curriculum is often just more work and harder, in excellence words. And when the program ignores the social and emotional aspects of giftedness in teens, then some identities quickly developing multiple peer influence, and consequences can be devastating.
So, I'm number 10. My name is Catherine. I'm the proud mother of a high school student who's thriving at Eastdale Collegiate. My son's progress is not accidental. It's a direct result of Eastdale's smaller learning environment, its lower student-to-teacher ratio, and the dedicated staff, and administration who created a culture of genuine inclusion and belonging. Eastdale serves students whose neurodiversities and invisible disabilities require a modified learning environment in order to meaningfully access education. If my child could cope and succeed in his local high school of more than 1,500 students, he would already be there. But students like my son cannot simply leave their disabilities at the school door. Expecting them to do so and moving towards closing Eastdale with their equivalent supports already in place creates barriers rather than removing them. That's not inclusion. Inclusion only works when it's properly supported. Right now, especially in light of significant teacher layoffs and system pressures, families do not see how city schools will be able to provide the level of individualized support students with MIT or other exceptionalities require. When specialized environments are removed before equivalent accommodations exist, students do not become more included, they become more vulnerable. Sorry, that's right.
Why don't you do it, you can let somebody else speak it, because if you feel more comfortable, if you want to speak.
At Eastdale, my son receives a meaningful education, participates fully in school life. He feels safe, he belongs. If he is forced into mainstream environment without adequate supports, he will not simply change schools, he will lose meaningful access to education. Some students require smaller specialized learning environments to achieve educational equality. Schools like Eastdale are not barriers to inclusion, they are accommodations that make inclusion possible. True commitment to equity recognizes that fairness does not mean sameness. The Ontario Human Rights Code is clear. Students with disabilities have the right to meaningful access to education and appropriate accommodation. Discrimination includes policies that appear neutral but create adverse effects for protected groups. Increasing grade 9 admissions and moving toward closure disproportionately impacts students with disabilities, a protected group under the closure. The Board's own human rights policy recognizes the duty to accommodate as a legal obligation that must be met up to the point of mental hardship, a very high threshold. With that in mind, it is normally stated that this is a smaller learning environment with lower student to staff ratio, or the accommodations myself and many other students required to learn successfully, and submitting this request in writing because families must be meaningfully included in decisions made about our children. The United Nations recognizes disability is shaped by environmental barriers. When barriers increase, disability increases. By closing ESDL without equivalent supports already in place, the TDSB risks becoming the institution creating those barriers. As a proud member of an advocate of the disability community, I believe this decision risks institutional ableism, not through intent but through impact, and impact matters. Without appropriate support, students with disabilities face increased risk of bullying, anxiety, mental health challenges, disengagement from school, and lower graduation outcomes. Statistics Canada shows that individuals with disabilities are disproportionately living below the poverty line, often connected to reduced educational attainment. Providing appropriate educational environments is therefore not optional, it is essential to equity, dignity, and long-term success. We must also consider what happens when students with individual disabilities become overwhelmed and unsupported in larger schools. Too often, they are suspended, they are excluded for safety reasons, clear behavioral problems rather than students needing accommodations. Data from both the TDSB and OntarioAutismCoalition already shows that students in specialized education, particularly students who are racialized, are disproportionately impacted by suspensions and expulsions, and we know formal data does not capture everything. Informal exclusion, short school days where students being sent home are real, and students with disabilities are disproportionately affected. When a small, well-supported environment disappears, this risk is not theoretical. Students lose structure, they lose belonging, and ultimately risk being pushed out of the learning altogether. Equity must be more than principle-weighted policy. Equity requires maintaining learning environments that already work for vulnerable students. We should be removing barriers for students with disabilities, not creating new ones. I respectfully ask the board to pause this decision, reverse this open grade 9 enrollment at ESDL, and work collaboratively with families, educators, and disability advocates to protect the learning environment that is already succeeding. ESDL is not failing students, ESDL is succeeding because it meets students where they are and allows them to learn with dignity. Please do not sell the land for condos. Please protect this proven pathway to success for some of the most vulnerable students.
solution, so going to grade 6, we try to integrate it into our regular school program that we do very, very badly. Players like did very quickly. In this case, like all at the time. And so middle school, Virgo had went through their process to get into behavior ICT program in grade 6. So we started that program, really being able to talk to learning school about an hour a day. It was very limited for the staff, for the teacher, for the COL, for the principal, high school principal, that they were incredibly passionate and dedicated and skilled at what they did. And at the time, it was great. He loved school. He was on school, integrated in school, went on the organized school trip to Ottawa. Was really loved school. And I have to say that that program definitely saved his education. He would not have been able to continue in education system in the capacity to try to had it not been for those individuals and that small classroom size to get to where he needed to be. And when he was a grade, just about to age out, the program that position being canceled. And when I challenged my son that he's going to be aging out, why is it the reasons one was that it certainly applied in a very racist, systematic manner. So I checked on that data to show that it was applied in a racist manner, to use that data to then go back to the source and find the administrators who were administering this program in a racist fashion. And I was told no, TDSB needs to work backwards. The reason that they gave was that the name of the program caused their son to participate in it, and I understand that I asked them changing the name. And I was told for some reasons. So this program was canceled. So this program that was possibly life-saving education for my son has been canceled. And again, small class sizes and skills professionals in the room are really what I think all our kids need.
Very much.
Thank you, everybody. And instead of starting from talking about my daughter's situation, who's now in the grade 11, and she went through a lot of hardship, and I heard some common issues and from the previous speakers, parents. And I think that many of the senior TDSB staff here, and you are also parents, you are TDSB senior officials. And I would like to speak from both sides and to think, and make it more visible. And so basically my recommendations, we'll start with my recommendations, is mainly that I think that we recommend to introduce or let's say extend and the treatment of teachers and the student staff. And so for them to have the mindset and therefore their behaviors and to be a true educator. And because I'm thinking, let's say true educator, I mean, as what I say, it's not only to teach, it's also to be supportive of students and to develop students' full potential, either it's disability or gifted and treated as abnormal. And in terms of regarding abnormal, that could be a long discussion about what is abnormal. Okay, and also to allow individual differences for students. Okay, and also to treat them equally instead of just acting as an outsider. Like as a teacher, I'm the one who mark you, or as a student staff, and I'm the one who make the call and like this. And students, they treat students equally. I mean, please
And so to me, and I would like to say, I can explain a little bit more of that, and within two persons problem. And I think once it's established, if you have a common goal and the definition of what's the short make it more specific, and then we should have ways of monitoring and correcting teachers and school and the staff in time and effectively. If something seriously wrong, identify and improve. And I think preventing and correcting in time is so important, rather than as compared to letting it happen, and just to the disaster conditions that finally happen to the students. And TDSB is on this, and has been resources. And the teachers, and they are all individuals, and they have different styles, and definitely they're all persons. And I would say, as a choice leader, we need to achieve that. I'm not 100% in like 80% something, and I would like to say that 60%. And then it's all the teachers, the student staff, and everybody just has independent staff, and they will feel it's easy, it's not that hard, and with the limited funding and human resources, and they need to feel the sense of achievement by doing this. And I want to explain a little bit more about my recommendations. You would like me to wrap it up? I already said it, and I mean, to introduce and expand the trees. Do I need to do that? But can I make it a little bit more specific, a little bit more very quickly? Yeah, I'm curious as to the jury look to that. I can talk about my daughter, how she has been through all these years, and she has met many good teachers and good student staff that they make remarkable achievements. And we are so thankful for, and with that, but it's ruined by just a few, okay? And still happening to her. And I'm keeping working with them very cooperatively, and to think from their point of view, but I met the same issue that has previous parents that do that help with help and help on behalf of other doing help with. And I mean, children students, they look at this through the last role models, and so these teachers, and then the testimonies, I look at the students that, okay, look at them, lose trust you, and end up with that school. I think the person actually, they should deserve the students' respect. And yes, exactly, you need to be knowledgeable and in your fields, and to be capable and in teaching and whatever. And very important to be responsible and caring, and each community is responsible and caring. And yes, and that's it.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, you come to me, and anyway, I would like to provide more information to Ms. Me. Thank you, and be written. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I just want to explain to everybody, I think people want to ask the same thing about because I'm with you, but I didn't go in part-time, so I feel simplified. Words are understanding about your career. Thank you for indulging me. Putting up with it.
So I'm a parent of twin girls who are diagnosed with autism and have a language delay under DSM-5. And personally, I'm really tired of feeling like they can't do it instead of what they can accomplish. They moved from senior kindergarten through to early intervention. They finally got that, and now I've learned how to use that will mostly be their brain. So I'd like to ask that service
And studies show that it's very, very beneficial to have group therapy. It's actually just as beneficial to me. Personally, I am a firm believer that disabled students can do anything with great supports and through extra help and education. A lot of kids are getting stuck between two systems. They're getting stuck between special education and mainstream education. And it seems like they don't really fit in either system. And then having to leave their school if they're in mainstream education, they lose that community, and that can be very difficult for those students and very disruptive. And it's just so hard for them, right? I am trying to raise 2 girls into strong Indigenous women, and I don't want them to go on a pipeline to welfare and disability. I lived on those, and it's extremely difficult, and I want so much better than that for my daughters. And I just feel like these kids are honestly, being failed on just a massive scale. I really would like to see meeting parents have way more, and more collaboration with parents. There are meetings at the school they attend that it seems like they listen, but haven't really implemented. It feels more like lip service than actual results. And just, I am a single mother. And if I can do it, then I just don't understand how the whole education system can. And I feel like this is where it is. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We couldn't make it.
And students who have spoken tonight, because I appreciate your vulnerability, sharing their pain, their struggles, things like, I never see it's awesome in the garbage now because they're not meaningless. I'm grateful my daughter's 19, because I think she's almost done and ready to launch into the world. And grateful that she grew up in TDSB and the school systems were more attentive to people who are different. I wanted to share a quote from a woman, her name is Dr. Jean Minton. She's the author of Think, Feel, Act, which was published in 2013. She says, relations are nutrients for the brain. Say it again. Relations are nutrients for the brain. Learning is about making relationships, and this is a language that allows all of us to absorb information and process information at a deeper level. And I think that one issue that hasn't come up that's systemic is that my daughter was blessed that I found for her a K-8 school. And I would like SEAC, Board of Education, and all the people who are in higher levels of authority to consider increasing the number of K-8 schools and continuing a model of community so that a parent wouldn't have to drive more than 20 minutes to a K-8 school. And I think that would increase capacity to engage parents and neighbors and people that don't have children who may be able to contribute to our educational community in very meaningful ways. I just found it sort of shocking that there's so few K-8 schools in the TDSB. I also wanted to speak to a systemic
been in the board for over 20 years with 2 students. And I'm coming here as a parent, but I'm also a professional, as a clinical forensic social worker, and working in the justice system, supporting individuals with complex behavioral and developmental needs. But I'm here to speak about the impact that the potential closure of specialized high schools in the TDSB will have on students like my younger daughter. My older daughter I'm not going to speak about because she left high school. She also has special needs, and she didn't finish high school. But I'm going to digress and talk about my daughter, who is behaviorally complex with a multitude of diagnoses. When she's overwhelmed, she has historically eloped, and her behaviors escalate in environments where she does not feel safe, understood, valued, or supported. In a large mainstream high school, managing elopement requires significant staff resources, and administration would be responsible for locating her, ensuring her safety, and responding to escalation, often pulling multiple staff away from other students. But in her current specialized setting, because she feels safe and supported, her elopement has become virtually non-existent. For the first time, this is not just behavioral progress, it is a more effective use of staff resources. This model prevents crisis instead of constantly reacting to it, because we have support staff in one location as opposed to providing staff one-to-one in multiple locations. And for the first time, my daughter is not just being managed, which she has been for many years, but she's thriving. She feels a sense of belonging. She's building confidence, gaining independence, earning credits, and developing real-life skills like cooking and cosmetology. Skills that will allow her to participate in society with dignity and purpose. In these schools, if these schools are closed, students like my daughter will face significant barriers. Sensory and environmental overwhelm, increased behavioral escalation, and school avoidance, and loss of meaningful skill-based programming. And I don't have to tell you that with increased behavioral escalation, we'll have suspension, possible expulsion, and she's going to be an adult shortly, so that could lead to justice involvement. She's a young woman, so we need to also talk about critical safety concerns. In a large, chaotic, mixed-gender environment where students can easily go unnoticed, she is significantly more vulnerable to exploitation, to harm, to assault. In her current school, she is known, she is seen, staff know where she is at all times, and that level of oversight is not just supportive, it is protective. Can I go a little bit longer?
Please do.
This is not just best practice, it is a human rights issue. Students with disabilities have the right to equitable access to education, to safety, and to dignity. They have the right to appropriate accommodations that allow them to learn and participate meaningfully. Closing these high schools does not uphold those rights, it undermines them. Closing these schools will not create inclusion, it will create displacement, regression, and risk. If the goal is to improve outcomes for students, then the recommendation should be not to be remove specialized environments that are working, but to strengthen and expand them. So my recommendations are to maintain and protect the specialized school placements for the students with complex behavioral and developmental needs, expand access to these programs to meet growing demand instead of manufacturing scarcity, as many families are still unable to access these appropriate placements, openly communicate with parents, students, and other community stakeholders, and ensure transparency and accountability for both the ministry and the board, and track long-term outcomes, academic, social, safety, and system involvement to guide evidence-based decision-making. Students like my daughter have a legal and human right to meaningful education, not a place where they are warehoused, not a system where supports are removed and risk is increased. Our children are not political pawns, they are not budget lines. They are entitled to safety, to dignity, and to a future. I urge you to protect what is working and to build on it and to consider not just what is being removed, but what will be lost, because I'm in the justice environment and I see what happens in the trajectory of students with behavioral needs and they end up in the justice system. And I have that fear for my daughter. Thank you for your time.
Is Jennifer in there?
Jennifer's here too. Where's she?
So if Jennifer's not there, I have admitted the first online person.
Jennifer is present.
Yeah, okay. No problem.
I gotta see, and more, I've been advised because we can't tell people online what's going on here. Limo and people are, the letting you go over. I mean, I ask if people can struggle if they can't just stick to the agreements, if at all possible. And I apologize.
Thank you for giving me a chance to speak today. I was here in December to talk about my family's incredible experience in our secondary school. I'm here again because the school's future is still threatened. In February 2026, we heard that the school will be open next year, but without grades 9 and 10. And apart from that, there will be little transparency and there's a real priorities are open next year. It was been my experience that the TDSB does all it can to prevent technology when the students need extra help. My daughter's in grade 12, took until grade 12 to have the TDSB recognize her as eligible for special education schools. It shouldn't take until the end of the student's school career for TDSB to recognize that the student needs something different. Parents should have to battle and escalate in order to get their kids an education. If the TDSB and the government were truly wanting to put students' achievements first, they would listen to parents and take it seriously when they raise concerns about their children's learning. Like my daughter, there are kids falling through the cracks who are undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, and as such are not getting the support they need. Furthermore, there are students with special education needs who don't fit in the exceptionality boxes. These students are generally sent to mainstream schools that don't work for them. Access to schools like Green Park is critical for these students, and for the students who are still trying to complete foundational credits later in the school. For those who don't know, Green Park has been around for about 100 years, educating girls, non-binary, and trans students with special needs. And it has a MIT program and an academic program. The two programs are well integrated, making it a great example of inclusion done well. Currently, my grade 12 daughter is taking the grade 9 physical education credit along with us in the MIT program. It doesn't really make sense that TDSB to do a grade 9 student sooner because there are other kids in higher grades who are still working on achieving their grade 9 credits. The TDSB appears to be moving towards closing schools like Green Park that are successfully serving kids with special education needs. They cite insufficient enrollment, yet they are dissuading students from attending by disallowing open houses, directing students elsewhere, and preventing students from qualifying for these programs. At the same time, the TDSB is working towards right-sizing high schools to put at least 1,000 kids in them. This doesn't work for all students. I went to a large high school with a young daughter, my older daughter just can't see moving out of the door with her sensory issues. She cannot function parents. These are the high schools where you'll find kids that once bullied her, and she wasn't able to learn in regular high school, ISD, or alternative school. We've tried them all. But now she's where she's succeeding, learning grade 12 at Eden Park. Eden Park has continued to change lives for the better. And with just 130 students, Eden Park is the right side of school. I'm just going to say that if she had the support she needed earlier, I'm sure it would have improved her learning and her mental health. Had we discovered Eden Park sooner, she might have been graduating this year. Instead, she's been another 3 years. So I would like us to value student achievement and well-being and protect and invest in schools that support special education needs.
Thank you very much. is
You have to take. No, it's not. Oh, there's one more person in the room. And then they'll start.
sorry, there was someone.
Every unanswered question, every outlet timeline, it's a time to try to figure that without some point they need to try. I'm a parent of an autistic child in TDSB, whose educational future is being shaped by the school system. As a new parent, I'm still learning how to navigate the school system, which makes clear that accurate communication is not just helpful, but it's essential. For children like mine, the decisions are not administrative mistakes or weaker. They shape where child learns, what supports they receive, and whether they are placed in an environment where they can truly succeed. That's why priority in the IPRC courses matters so deeply. After our school support team meeting, I began asking for clear information about when my child's IPRC would take place. I followed up several times to focus on that answer. Eventually, I was told that the standard was for an IPRC to happen within 3 months, and that the 50-day requirement applied only to completion of the request. But when I reviewed the board's special education plan, it states something different. Within 15 days of an parent request, families must receive not only the guide to special education, but also written notice indicating approximately an IPRC would meet. That difference may sound procedural, but for families like mine, it changes everything. Because the policy was interpreted inconsistently, decisions affecting my child's future became unnecessarily uncertain. As a parent, that was the moment trust in the process began to break. What made that delay so difficult was not only waiting itself, but it was what the waiting meant. While the timeline is really unclear, I could not prepare for my child's next education as it is confidence. I could not know whether the right placement and support would be ready in time, and my child remained in limbo, while critical decisions affecting his learning environment were still unresolved. Because children with special education needs debates on an abstract administrative task. These affect real developmental time, real transitions, and real opportunities to receive support when plans are supposed. When the written policy says one thing and families are told another, parents are asking, what are the actual rules? What rights can be relied on? And how many other families accept incorrect information simply because they don't know that they should pursue it? My child's IPRC was eventually scheduled, but the weeks of uncertainty and repeated follow-ups could have been avoided. Accuracy, policy-aligned communication had been provided from the beginning.
I'm really sorry to be interrupting at this point, but if you could make your last point and provide it to us in writing, then we'll read the rest of it.
Okay. So this is not my first family's only speaking. It contributes to the larger system issue. Inconsistent interpretation of IPRC policy creates unequal access to information out of schools. Procedural protections lose their value when their interpretation depends on individual administrators rather than consistent worldwide complaints. Requirements are unclear, families who questions preparation time, and students make placement decisions. For children with support, every debate is a week they cannot take part. To protect families from avoidable confusion, I respectfully ask TDSB to recommend mandatory annual compliance training for principals on IPRC post-development parents and timeline obligations. Standardized written IPRC timeline notices immediately after every parent request using board output language. And mandatory board-wide IPRC compliance checks for every case and automatic send
air traffic controlling everything with Jordan. I'm gonna defer both the video and the written statements to our main meeting. So we're sure we just allocate all our time to our speakers here or online, all right?
Moving online, please.
Okay.
Hello, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I will try to keep this brief. So I'm here as a parent of 2 children in the TDSB. My oldest child has, he's in grade 3 now. He has a diagnosis of ADHD and autism level 1. But the biggest barrier that we face in the TDSB is the climate of exclusion for kids with special needs. So that's from other parents, from staff, all the way up to school administrators. So my son received an ADHD diagnosis in kindergarten, but he didn't get his autism diagnosis until the second half of grade 1. So for the first 2.5 years of his schooling, before that diagnosis, he really needed special education supports, but he didn't have a label that would flag him as a kid who does. So for that critical 2.5 years, he was treated like a bad kid with behavior troubles, not a kid with a neurodevelopmental condition that needs accommodations under the parents' code. So everything was about how his bad behavior and what we must do wrong as parents. So we knew that he was neurodivergent. He's really bright, funny, kind kid, but he really struggled with emotional regulation, social skills. But communication from school always focused on what he was doing wrong and what we needed to do about it. Like we would get calls from the principal back in JK about how other parents were complaining about their child, so we needed to talk to him and figure out how to make it stop. We were just advocating constantly for support. It was absolutely exhausting. I had to advocate for an SST, I had to advocate for referrals to the model school's pediatric clinic for assessments. Then after we received the assessments, we had to advocate for those recommendations to be followed. It was just constant. We would be asking for support. The principal would say that we just don't have the resources at school. So then I tried to go to the superintendent, the trustee at that time. And on a few occasions when we would have a special needs assistant deployed to the school for a few weeks to help in the class, it would be like night and day. So the kid would be able to finally regulate and participate in class. It was amazing. But again, with this constant cycle of trying to advocate. So JK, we were repeatedly told by the principal that the school did not have the resources. Sorry, is that 3 minutes up already? No. Okay, I'll try to finish up. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Email your prepared text. We'll read it.
I'll do that.
We'll see what we're able to.
Okay, so I'll just quickly say, just to that, instead of getting support that we needed, our child was excluded, was criminalized. We had a school called CAS on our family for his behavior. And when CAS met with us, they said that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing. And they're closing the file, and that there was nothing that we could do to compel the school to follow the human rights code and implement the basic recommendations from our doctors and other professionals. We've had families who made our time at school just torturous. We had families trying to get us to leave and get our kid out of school. We had a family call the police on our 7-year-old autistic child after the school refused to suspend him for a classroom incident. So every step of the way has just been really challenging. And then finally, when he got this autism diagnosis after 2.5 years, it was like everything made sense. He's not a bad kid. He's just a kid who needs support. And now having support in an ASB ISP classroom, that's incredible. And I will include all of the whole thing that I really wanted to share. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, and you got 3 minutes. Please squeeze it in. Can't get it all in, and please email us your comments. We're gonna read it.
Okay, so hi, my name is Kenny. My youngest son is a wheelchair user. And he's just finishing up senior year. I'll try to speak very quickly. I want to talk about the senior year grade 1 transition with respect to physical accessibility concerns. This is also my second kid, and so I know that typically elder children also have a hard time with this SK grade 1 transition as well, and if you receive a lot of support, it's a very important transition. It's just that the type of support my youngest son is going to need, they will have to consider him being a wheelchair user, and I have concerns with that. That background, my son's school is technically designated a fully accessible school by TDSB standards. However, there are still many physical barriers, and a lot of recommendations will be for schools designated fully accessible, because while I wish there were like all schools be designated fully accessible, but I think if we are designating schools fully accessible, we should endeavor to make them as accessible as possible. And just generally, the inside of the school is hard to navigate. And I can give you a whole long list of specific physical barriers, but seeing as I've already sent a list to their superintendent recently, and I only have a few minutes, I'll try to summarize. But
give us a couple of examples of stimulus or this for the
great, I will. All right. So the teachers and staff, they have done a really wonderful, beautiful job of facilitating inclusion, and it has taken a lot of effort on their part, and a lot of it has relied on there being the structure of kindergarten class there being 2 adults, right? Because there are a lot of logistical elements. And so I do have a couple of examples in reading, but there's a lot of inner doors that aren't automated, and the school does have an elevator, but that they can't get the whole class, right? And so there does have to be splitting up and coming back together a lot of the times. And so just for logistical reasons, moving to the school can be very difficult. Things like that. And a lot of this just relies on having 2 adults for logistical reasons. So my recommendation would be to have 2 adults assigned for classrooms with a wheelchair user for logistical reasons. There's another area that was really mentioned, which is the yard. Generally, the playground equipment in the yard is not accessible. And above T12, my son is typically developing, so just imagine strapping deals to the butt of any typically developing 5-year-old, there's kind of 9 things to do. And so I fully anticipate the accessibility grant will become my son's slide, because we're not getting the playground equipment he can use, right? Which is unfortunate, and then it also is a lot more than the yard teachers to be watching. And as I obviously I'm talking to my principal, the thing is they will have a supervisor for they'll be watching a group of special needs kids they'll be responsible for. But this is a lot of responsibility on that from a lot of people. And I just think it's I think designated fully accessible schools should have more supervision on the yard, and ideally would have physically accessible playground equipment considered in the site designation, or at least endeavor to bring up to accessibility.
All right, that's fantastic, and thank you very much. Please send that information. Thank you so much for taking your time to speak with us.
Okay, can I just mention one more thing about the yard?
If you can do it super fast.
Okay, alright, so snow management limitations make school years like functionally inaccessible whenever there is significant snowfall. And I would just recommend the schools designated fully accessible, provided with additional snow clearing similar to the congregated sites, especially if there is already wheelchairs or like right now it's just a path they get and there's and damage to the wheelchair.
That's a really good point. All right, thank you very much for getting applause in the room. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Caroline, you get 3 minutes, and please try to stick to it. And if you're going to have a lot left, just kindly email your speech to us, and we will all read it.
I don't see her in the waiting room, but there still are some people who haven't identified themselves by their names, so I'm going to go to the next person who is on me. So this one goes to
Okay, our
yes, discussion.
all right. Please.
Is it my turn?
No, it's your turn. I'm speaking to Bob Speaker of the Chair of SEAC. Sorry for the wait, thanks for the patience. You have 3 minutes, and if you can't finish everything, certainly email in your remarks, so we'd be delighted to read the rest of them. Go for it.
Right, thank you. So yeah, I'm here as a parent who's spent years navigating the systems within sport. Questions change, the story is the same. My child has been met with prejudice, exclusion, and numerous barriers. I'm here to talk about the system that treats dignity and education special needs students, especially those from racialized families, as optional. Year over year, month over month, my child's faced countless acts of microaggressions, racism, ableism. For a long time, there was no sense of safety when sending my child through these school doors. The difference wasn't in just how we showed up, but it was how we were seen. I had to be hyper aware of my own presence, knowing that I can't dress like other dads and drop off in a baseball cap and sneakers without being judged or labeled. For my wife, she has to wear her wedding ring to every meeting, so when I can't be there, she has to show me, she's married. Really, if we just show justified anger of a parent whose child is being failed or mistreated, I don't be able to be angry like that or worse, get out. Basically, a parent who's trying to fight for the basic right to education for my child, yet I have to fight principals, superintendents, and elected officials for basic accommodations. We're doing trauma basis accusations, calls to children's aid society. This seems to be a tactic often used against Black parents to silence advocacy and to threaten the school's inabilities to provide support. In our experience, the best staff aren't necessarily the ones who most times, but they're the ones who proactively try to roll up their sleeves to remove the barriers, and those are the individuals in the exception, but something cool. I've seen the depths of institutional ableism within the system. We've watched essential technology secured by one professional sit on the shelf with 4 months because no one would take it down. We have had our staff tell us that colleagues' assessments don't matter, that they can unilaterally change my child's IEP goals for technology's allocations on a whim. When we bring up these failures to the table, the people around the table change. We're told to forget the past because they were the ones who did it. But the harm is cumulative. The system is just another meeting, but to my child, it's a lifetime of being told they don't matter. Currently, my child's in a much better place. He's a valued member of our school and our neighboring community. We're finding work where people are showing up the way they should have from the beginning. But a child's right to education shouldn't depend on luck or getting a proactive teacher or a good professional. Special education is not optional. Therefore, I believe the training to understand cannot be optional. So a call on youth, TDSB, and more importantly, the Ministry of Education to move beyond recommendations and optional professional development. What I think you need is mandatory training, so comprehensive ongoing training on special education supports anti-ableism, anti-oppression, that must be mandated for all staff, from administration all the way down to the classroom. Especially here, continuity of care. We need a system where resources and technology follow the child immediately, not after months of parental advocacy or executive intervention. Need accountability. Staff must be held to the assessments and resources already allocated to a child. A single staff member should not have the power to disregard professional work of their peers. Families like mine shouldn't have to fight this hard just to be treated fairly. We aren't asking for special treatment, we're asking for equal treatment that the law promises. Our children aren't optional, their futures aren't optional. I believe it's time to train those people who hold those futures in their hands to reflect that reality. Thank you very much for giving me the time to speak on this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thanks for your patience. You get 3 minutes, all of you on the subject. Wrap up at that point, and if you've got additional things you wanted to say, send them to over your remarks. Ready?
Sure, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Rena. I do also have my husband Andrew here as well. And so we want to speak a little bit about our daughter, who's currently in a diagnostic kindergarten class. And so we were asked to talk specifically to the barriers that we encountered thus far in her education process. So we want to keep it brief, obviously. So the first is limited support, and I'm sure you've heard already about tonight. So it's clear that the goal of support is sort of the bare minimum of keeping kids vaguely safe and sometimes not even achieving that within the classroom. So Sia started in the DK class in September. There were 5 children in her class in total. The teacher to kid ratio was amazing. They were able to keep kids safe and also work on education, which is something we should all strive for in the school system. However, because of the increase in numbers of kids in the class, now there are 10 kids in the class with very high needs, they're very active, and now the goal is just keeping the kids safe and making sure nothing crazy happens. It's really setting the kids up for failure at school. I've heard stories of kids that get injured in school, CF scores pretty poorly, so we're always worried that she's going to be, putting something unsafe into her mouth. But one example is that, Sia was recommended for a DK placement because she needs help with ADLs. And one of those ADLs is toileting, but on weekends at home, she's tried, but they're not able to provide toileting in school simply because there are not enough staff to actually help with ADLs. So the goal of having her in that class isn't actually being achieved. Otherwise, she is a very bright young girl that loves to read and is super social. And now she's in a class with other kids that are nonverbal and aren't interacting with her. And so it hasn't really been able to meet her needs in that way. The second barrier that we identified was the lack of involvement of parents ourselves in the whole SFRC and IPRC process, and the lack of involvement by, the lack of transparency that's offered to parents about these processes. So SFRC was a very frustrating experience for us. We went back and forth communicating with the resource educator, with the principals for months. And then finally, we very persistently advocated in May, in June, prior to her starting kindergarten. And then finally we heard back. We were told that her SFRC was going to be the last week of August before starting school, which is just frankly unacceptable. How is anyone supposed to plan, supposed to prepare their child with, extra needs? I'm supposed to feel confident that those needs will actually be met and your child will be safe at school if these needs are happening literally days before school is starting. And so
let you know that unfortunately you can just wrap up quickly and then you can send on other comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I apologize.
Oh, no problem. That's okay. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. I know it's a long night for you, and there was anything further that I missed.
No, I think that the summary is a lot of more than what the CA can learn. We'd like to see a system that will empower learning and allow us to move beyond the safety benefits or in terms of battery to the future of the thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, take care. Bye.
I don't see Shauna online, so I have admitted David, who is next on the list.
David, you're there?
I'm here.
Hi, David. My name is David. I'm the chair of SEAC. Welcome. We've got a room full of people here listening, and also online. I apologize for the delay because the TDSB would not agree with SEAC that you'd be able to watch the rest of the meeting. And I've heard the ground rules that we asked. Please don't mention names of any students, including your child, or teach or school. You have 3 minutes. When it's up, we're going to let you know. And then, more than you want to present, you can send your remarks in, and we will certainly read them.
Thank you, David.
Go for it, David.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is David Allen. I'm the father of a son with special needs who attends one of the schools at the center of this discussion. I'm joining you virtually while traveling for work. I'll just start by telling you something about my son. Every single day, my son faces challenges that most of us will never fully understand. Getting up, getting out, navigating a world that wasn't designed for how his mind works. And he does it anyway. The quiet, relentless bravery that honestly inspires me every day. He doesn't ask for the world to be easier, he just asks for tools to meet it. And his school gives him those tools. And because of that, my son is okay, he's on a path, he's progressing. But the current decision to restrict grade 9 enrollment puts that path at risk. As enrollment shrinks, teachers are reassigned, programs are cut, and specialized environment that makes these schools work begins to hollow out from the inside. My son's future doesn't disappear overnight, it just quietly narrows. And for the students who haven't arrived yet, the door may simply never open for them. And that's really who I think we are here for tonight. I'm sure you've heard from parents about what these schools mean in human terms, and I want to take a more fiscal case because the numbers are as compelling as the stories. But first, the mission. The TDSB's own special education plan states that its purpose is to enable all students to reach high levels of achievement and to acquire the knowledge, skills, and values they need to become responsible members of a democratic society. And explicitly affirms this extends to students with special education needs. The board's values include equity, accessibility, and partnership with families. Closing these schools' pipelines and reducing their resources is a direct betrayal of that mission. Research from CAMH and ICES, which I know this group are familiar with, found that adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities are nearly 4 times more likely to become high-cost healthcare patients, and more than 1 in 3 fall into that category. Their conclusion was unambiguous. Structured programming, proactive support early in life is what prevents these costs from compounding later. And that is not a social argument, that's a fiscal one. According to Inclusion Canada, only 25.5% of working age adults with intellectual disabilities have paid employment versus a national average of 75.5%. They earn 33 cents for every dollar a non-disabled peer earns. The cost of that gap in ODSP, in healthcare, in lost tax revenue is carried by Ontario taxpayers for a lifetime.
The last thing in the world I want to do is to interrupt you because you're making such
but tonight I'm really asking this committee and the TDSB to be brave too. Please remind the TDSB of its own stated mission. Stand up for the students who haven't arrived yet, but desperately need these schools to be there when they do. Don't let the next child like mine lose the chance my son was given. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item, number 24, Shane.
Shane. Shane was with us.
All right, Shannon, you're with us?
Yes.
Okay, hi, I'm David Popsky, I'm the chair of SEAC. Thank you for waiting. We apologize for the delay. If you get 3 minutes, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm asking you to wind up. But if you've got more to say, and fully understand if you send it, your written remarks, and we'll read them. And please mention names of students or including your child or teachers or school. Okay, go for it. It's all yours.
Yes. So good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here. My son has autism and is currently in senior kindergarten, preparing to go to grade 1 this September. And I'm here tonight because I'm deeply worried about what this transition is going to look like for him. I want to start by saying that the teachers and the EA at his class has tried to be supportive. They care about my son, but they're also operating under the budget and constraints set. And there is only so much they can do within a system that does not give them enough resources. This is not a complaint about my school. This is just something I am worried about as a parent, as my son is going to grade 1. He has 1 year right now, which will be taken away when he goes to grade 1, and there will be nobody to help him with the transition activity. And in grade 1, the classroom is no longer self-sustained, self-contained, the way it is in kindergarten. My son will have to walk around to go to bathroom on his own, which is somewhere else in the building. And for most children, this might be nothing. For my son and kids like my son who have autism, it's a great deal of anxiety and confusion. They also have to go to lunchroom by their own, which is also overwhelming. Now, there's something else I also wanted to talk about, which is how difficult it is for us parents to find out what help is available. The information is completely fragmented. There is no roadmap, not a single place where parents can go to understand what resources exist. I know that the resources do exist, but it's just that there is no way for us to figure out where it exists. And the only way I have found out even about this even is if you are talking to parents who are connected and who know, and there are a lot of parents like me who have no idea about what is happening and who want to advocate. So that is something if we can work on, just having access to information, that would be very helpful as a first step. And again, beyond the EA support, my son also needs access to the SLP and occupational therapy, and these services are either unavailable or so stretched that they are practically non-existent. Our school listens, I'm very grateful for that, but the broader system is making it very difficult to advocate, wait list for assessment, stretch on for a month, and I have to constantly re-explain what my son needs, and I need to re-advocate again and again about this. And I just want some kind of help for the kids with autism or any other disability going into the next grade where they would want more support to have, like, can we have more dedicated EA support for kids to at least help them navigate through the system when they have tendency to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. The education part, honestly, at this part comes secondary to me. I'm more worried about the safety aspect and him getting overwhelmed and not having access to the support that he needs.
Sheila, thank you very much. That's it.
Yes, of course.
You could just wrap up if you've got a final point that we think.
No, that's all I have. But mostly what I would say is having access to information in one consolidated place would be the #1 thing that I would be asking for.
This committee's been pressing that very over, and we're with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Looking at the Christmas with us.
Hi,
Mr. Mayor.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
My name is David Lebowski, I'm the chair of the Special Ed Advisory Committee. I have a room full of people waiting to hear from you. I apologize for the delay. And I apologize if we can only give each speaker 3 minutes. So with your 3 minutes is up, I'm going to jump in and ask you to make your concluding. Ready to go?
Ready to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 children in the TDSB. My youngest has Down syndrome. He's currently in senior kindergarten, and we advocate to have him placed in a regular classroom. The barriers have been endless, so let's start with issue number 1. So the TDSB conference and divides. My recommendation would be that I urge parents to initiate an accessibility committee in their schools. We organized in October 2025 with 41 members with significant external support. Our last campaign garnered well over 200 emails confirmed by the superintendent. It unifies and it solidifies. We have a co-learning model that expands scope and therefore accessibility practices. We operate using parent consultations, so we discuss accuracy outcomes, we want response times, etc. It offers consistency. We recently had a workshop by Arch Disability Law Center that catered to us. The presentation was titled Inclusive Education and the Duty to Accommodate. It's available on our YouTube channel if you're interested. And then problem 2, lack of support and timely transitions at school start. So for example, SPH grade 1, recommendation is school supports and safety plans should be established a year prior, even if enrollment has not yet been solidified. Schools should be aware of incoming needs and address them accordingly, prioritizing safety. Problem number 3, neglect of essential safety planning with an over-reliance on parents to determine how to address needs in proxy. Recommendations: educating staff on their roles and responsibilities, which should be ongoing. School administration to coordinate and monitor special education progress, establish checkpoints, determine appropriate administrative deadlines and response times, and open and transparent communication with parents. And then translate that parent feedback to school practice. Problem 4, lack of accountability on behalf of special education staff allows them to play on unequal power dynamics, specifically during accuracy and SST meetings. Recommendations: staff preparedness, for example, reading the student profile prior to the meeting. Redistribution of power in IPRC, so hosting principal relies on special education consultant for school support, so they're unlikely to stand in opposition. We need true neutral parties, not encouraged by the TDSB. Our annual reviews of special education consultant decisions, so like meeting minutes to ensure discussion remains productive, appropriate, professional, free from manipulation or coercion. Educational outcomes from IPRC decisions should be made explicit, so if they're receiving a diploma, certificate, or certificate of accomplishment. And then consistent cultural competency training. Problem number 5, special education processes lack specificities. The categories of exceptionality are subtracted, inaccurate, and deficit-based definitions. So I would call for a detailed and transparent definitions with updated terminology rather than terms like severe disability and discussing things like cognitive potential. Problem 6, barriers navigating special education. To minimize those barriers for parents, having page limits on special education documentation. Special education plan is 232 pages. Remove TDSB policy. Increase parent education opportunities, so outsourcing partnerships, Arch, Alliance, etc. And then the last thing was recent ministry data was presented on EQAO at a recent council meeting. And like on EQAO results in student well-being. So I would also recommend that we critically engage with data. Who is being represented in the data, who is not, how are we tracking the well-being of students with disabilities? And then is that census detecting the well-being being conducted in other formats for children with accessibility needs, and that's that.
Thank you very much.
Woo!
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great day.
You too.
And James, I'm just gonna interrupt before the next speaker to say I have told all the people in the waiting room that they have 3 minutes, that we'll stop them at that point with a wrap up and to send anything that they
Okay, excellent. Thank you. That is a point made telling me I don't have to say it, but excellent. So hurry up. Are we ready?
old. He's in grade 8, going to grade 9. So I have chosen placement for him, which is at this school, and that was during the SST meeting. So they told me that they sent me a piece where they said, "Oh, we choose a different school, which is that best placement for him," and I declined that, and I explained why, and I said, I need the other school that I choose, but they keep forcing me to accept it. And then they said, okay, I said, I'm not going to sign nothing until I receive the psychological assessment result, which is today. They sent it to me and they said we're going to have another meeting. So my question is, why is that I'm not being heard? Why they don't like, I'm his mother and I know what is the best for him. Even though they are the teachers and the doctors, thank you for everything, but I want them to hear me. I want to feel comfortable. And this is not the first time. Even for the psychological assessment. The last time he did it, when he was in kindergarten, 2018, I requested recently in September 2026. He just did it. They just did it right now. So this is the only thing I'm asking. Why are they forcing me to accept a placement that I don't want? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Jordan, I'm just going to, there are a lot of people who aren't on the waiting right now, so I'm just going to tell you that Charlotte is the next admission.
Sure.
Okay.
Charlotte, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey there. We're all waiting for each other. Sorry about that. I'm David Lepofsky. I'm the chair here. Welcome aboard. And feel free to get started.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm just going to start my video there. Good evening. My name is Charlotte. I'm a parent of 4 children aged 16, 15, 12, and 7. And this year we have the somewhat hilarious circumstance of having all 4 children in 4 different TDSB schools. So the mornings in our home are super laid back. One of my children, my 15-year-old son, is profoundly intellectually disabled by a rare disease and also has autism spectrum disorder. He's been in the public school system for 11 years. Each year has been tremendously challenging. The TDSB practices in place to identify a child's exceptionality are wildly demoralizing, in particular when a parent comes into the school board with reports and diagnoses in hand, and are still made to wait, in our case, 1.5 school years, and wait and see in the face of the apparently throwaway slogan that early intervention is key. They set us off on the wrong foot often. Placements are further demoralizing, and programming as children age even more so. My son Isaiah was made to wait 6 years and 11 months for funding via the Ontario Autism Program. That funding came magically after he reached the age of 12, at which time he was expected to be less autistic, more capable, and therefore in need of less funding. This year, my son entered high school, grade 9 in DDISP, which has amounted to nothing more than childcare. The programming is both rudderless and non-existent. Parent input is not considered. And this year I received an email along the lines of, kindly send your son with a second lunch tomorrow, as he tends to get bored in the afternoon. He's also eloped several times physically from school property, somehow traveling more than 500 meters away from the school on one occasion before I was able to locate him on an air tag. We've had the alphabet soup with a backroom and named meetings with the board, and we've made our suggestions, reading and actually knowing our son well. In particular, we've asked for integration, and we've asked that he be given real-life tasks to perform in the context of his daily programming, which is truly where he thrives. The issue is not a lack of desire on the part of his educators. The issue is people power, and at the high school level, I have learned buy-in from admin. Year over year, for 11 years, we've heard all about all of the shortages of staffing, and in particular, educational support staff. As the base
excuse for the lack of programming and initiatives. Our son's high school experience has only just begun, as he'll be retained as a student until he's 21, and I refuse to allow it to be an experience that doesn't capture the entirety of his abilities now and foster new ones going forward. The programming for ISPs is not conducted in consultation with parents who arguably know their children and their needs better than most. My recommendations are to create a mandatory parent input protocol and devising programming specific to a child's needs, abilities, and goals. And rather than write the decisions into an IEP that is ignored, particularly at every turn, to make a child's success contingent on the adherence to an IEP, a mandatory requirement of the school and the board. In other words, to make loss of learning a liability to the board the same way that the board recognizes injury as a liability on their part. To hire and maintain more educational support staff to sufficiently train them, to ensure measures are in place to prevent burnout, and more importantly, the types of injuries that I have seen sustained by these hardworking individuals. I'll make it very clear that support staff bear the brunt of the shortcomings of this incumbent government. Children are in desperate need of support, we fail to provide it, and then very quickly we see the consequences of the lack of support, the lack of intervention, and the lack of programming. In our case, in our home of 6 people, when Isaiah is struggling, it reverberates through our home, and then all 6 of us are struggling alongside him. Finally, as it relates to the mandatory attendance requirements tabled today at Paul Flanders' press conference, as a mature part-time undergrad student with significant family responsibilities and different circumstances at the University of Toronto with a 3.5 GPA, my attendance is far from perfect, and were it to impact my grades, I wouldn't be able to attend school anymore. Attendance is a privilege that is not afforded to everyone for a variety of reasons. Attendance should not be a barrier to success for certain of the TDSB students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to just jump in and finish. Stay with us, so I'm going to say that attendance rate is next, and I'm just in the process of the bidding.
Okay, thank you. Hello, good evening. I'm David Fuss, the chair of the Special Ed Advisory Committee. If you call me, please feel free to start with the record.
Thank you. Our child was in that triple grade 6, 7, 8 combined grades gifted classroom in September 2026 with one teacher. Younger peers from the school community who had been identified as gifted were not allowed to attend their own school and were offered placement elsewhere instead. It is unfair to the teacher to have to teach students with multiple exceptionalities in a very large and demanding classroom environment, which requires depth, breadth, and pace for each individual student, each of whom has their own individualized IEP. Less than 2 weeks ago, the principal from my child's school came into the classroom and let the children know that the program is being dismantled from the local school as of September 2026. A grade 6 student who was in the classroom at the time, quote, burst into tears. That was told by my child. My own child is aging out, and I'm sharing this information with you because I need you to appreciate the impact this is having on the emotional well-being of additional children in the school beyond my own child. I feel that the school system at the moment is being treated like a business and like a CEO type of environment. I even heard the word CEO in the news earlier today, as opposed to child-centered decision-making. The supervisor, Rohit, does not respond to any emails. His very high salary could be used by the TDSB to purchase resources for students such as computers. When I'm asking questions of superintendent, the email responses that I'm receiving are form responses as opposed to actually answering my question. So for example, I was sent a very patronizing email explaining to me what an IEP is, instead of answering the following question. My question was, how many triple grade gifted classrooms were in place in September 2026? What was the racial profile of the students at these schools? Why has my question still not been answered as of the 13th of April 2026 by the TDSB staff? If they didn't know the answer to the question, it is their job to find out the answer and communicate it to the parent community. The superintendent has a responsibility to build community and to build relationships, especially when I initiated a meeting with another parent, other parents, and Black community members who are very professional members of the community within that small school catchment area. The meeting initially took place with respect and professionalism. A follow-up meeting was prevented from happening with all of us. The superintendent only agreed to meet with me by myself and with another parent by themselves. That is not a way to build community and professionalism.
I'm going to just interrupt and ask if you could make your 3 minutes, make one last point. Feel free to send in all of your remarks and we'll read them after.
I appreciate that.
Okay, and I apologize.
That's okay. I appreciate your late evening. Our child is a biracial student with a dual exceptionality. Targeting the program at their school comes across as discriminatory from my perspective, as the school has its needs socially and economically, requiring more support and not less. I also don't believe a special education classroom would be treated in the same way with cuts as gifted programming is currently being handled at my child's school. As a K-8 school, which is ideal for supporting the educational well-being of children, research shows how shifting children from school to school is disruptive and puts them at risk. For example, school mobility and developmental outcomes in young adulthood by the PNC at the elementary level. I don't believe that Forest Hills gifted programming would be treated in the same manner as our child's school. The voice of racialized parents and students matter too. The community deserves continuity. I have answers to barriers and ways to make things better, and I'm very happy to send that in by email.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Seriously, I can't find anything. I'm not allowed to attend the meeting, apparently the same as the person in person, but that's an example yet again of a systemic barrier. Not created by you, but created by the
If you could send in your remarks, it would really help us so that we can review anything that you weren't able to cover at the time. Thank you very much.
To Nora or to somebody else? I don't know.
So email us to Leanne and she will share it with us.
Okay, Leanne.
Yeah, Leanne,
I have Jonathan.
all right, Leanne, can you just for the benefit of people here, how many of you got left online?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, 6. All right, Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Lee. Thank you for taking the extra time tonight. My son has a physical disability and uses a wheelchair. He attends a school in the TDSB defined as accessible, but that definition has major gaps. So, for example, it only requires one barrier-free entrance. And it doesn't matter if that entrance is way down at the end of the school or is otherwise inconvenient. That definition requires an accessible path to the school, but it doesn't say anything about what happens inside the school. There's no accessibility requirements for hallway doors, classroom doors, or anything. It requires an elevator, but not access to every floor. And there's no requirements about age, maintenance, or what to do when that elevator isn't working. So these gaps drive to actual segregation of people with disabilities from the rest of the community and school. So I strongly recommend that we have requirements for essential exterior accessibility, interior accessibility, and equipment reliability to the TDSB's definition of accessible. This definition also ignores staffing needs. So accessibility will always involve a combination of facilities and staffing. If you strip on one, you have to do one of the other. If you strip too much, the other doesn't work. So you need both of these things to work in tandem together. So I also strongly recommend adding minimum staffing requirements reference to the TDSB's definition of accessible. An accessible building can never be an accessible learning environment without enough staff to support the students there. So these are proactive solutions I think that can prevent barriers before they become a problem. My son and I have run into several issues that could have been avoided if someone could just take a few proactive steps ahead of time instead of the TDSB waiting until these problems actually became a reality. And at that point, solutions took a lot of time and bureaucracy to get through, and some of it never even got fixed in the first couple of years of school. So I hope our goal is to make sure that everyone in our communities can fully participate in TDSB, and not just to make the day-to-day easier, but as an investment into our children. We want independence and self-sufficiency for our children, so they become productive and self-sufficient members of society. And so we need to build a school that's possible. The current definition doesn't do that. Right now we're saying, well, your friends can use door 3 to go inside, you have to go to door 7. You can't go to the library today if your class is going to the library, the elevator's broken. You can't take attendance to the office like all of your friends do every day because there's too many doors without power buttons in the night. We're saying you don't belong here, you should be segregated over there. And I'm grateful we're having this conversation because I think these kind of definitions to the changes to the definition of accessibility could really help us make that more reality if we think proactively about these kinds of things. And just to look at this from a slightly different angle, it's not just about the students, it's also about the staff themselves. Our school had a vice principal who was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and progressed to her needing a walker and a wheelchair. This is an accessible school in TDSB. She was unable to get sufficient support, and she had to transfer school boards. So we're losing talent because of this sort of thing. Every single one of us is, one diagnosis or one slip on the ice away from joining the same community. And so this affects all of us. Our entire community benefits when we integrate people like us out into the community and make sure they have a place to go and belong.
Thank you very much.
Katarina is next.
Katarina, tell me if Katarina's on with us.
Hello.
Hello, Katarina. I'm taking the bus here in the chair. You have 3 minutes. Feel free to start when you're ready.
Thank you. We have a child who is around grade 2 who has an autism diagnosis that we received at just over 24 months. When we started her in JK, we approached the school asking for an IEP and an IPRC. We were told no, that does not happen until age grade 1. What this does is basically prevents 2 years of being placed on waitlists for things like OT and speech therapy. And when we did request the IPRC, we pushed very hard and finally got agreement in grade 1. And we were told by the time that basically the only way to get an IPRC was to have it requested by the principal, which is counter to what is actually on the website. Luckily, we actually knew that we had a right to ask for one, so we did. By the time we got the IEP, we asked during the IPRC, do we really want to put a victim of autism in our child? The answer to that question is yes, because she is. So there seems to be some kind of resistance at the admin level to any kind of IPRC or IEP at anything earlier than grade 1, which puts our kids 2 years behind at the start. And it seems to be related to a stigma against autism, or perhaps not recognizing autism as a disability that it is. Once we did get the IPRC and the child was granted the exceptionality, we were pushed very hard to consider an autism placement rather than in class, despite our child being verbal, literate, numerate, and able to be independent in the classroom. Well, we don't understand why that would be suggested, because the only reason we come up with is that it's too difficult to have a child with medium to low support needs who has autism in a regular classroom. That probably has something to do with the lack of support, the lack of EAs in the classroom, the lack of EAs in school overall. Also, we lack training. So it appears that we were offered basically a class with pretty much zero support, also known as quote unquote indirect support, which makes the tiers written up on the website also kind of a bit of a joke. The teachers don't have enough time in the classroom. Our particular child is in the classroom with multiple children, at least 4, perhaps 5, who have special needs. The teachers obviously were able to do differentiated instruction of any kind with 5 children in the classroom. Just due to time constraints, that means that the ratio of students to teachers is way too high if you're not going to provide additional EA support. Yard and lunchroom supervision. Archie O'Tarn has experienced bullying for 2 years. In the lunchroom and in the yard, the ratio of supervisors to children is far too low. Our child alone throughout the experience punching, kicking, tackling, being spit on, choked. And this is to say nothing of the actual verbal abuse that she received. And of course, the parents were told to find a safe adult, tell them what happened. We were told by my child, I couldn't see it or not. Anyway.
I know that this is like totally inadequate amount of time, but your 3 minutes are up, so could I get you to just wrap up with a final point?
The final point is that our child, the whole point is that the combating bullying has been focused on making our child work on her quote-unquote social skills and to be less autistic presenting. I want to know where is the time spent on all the other students who are neurotypical on their social skills to prevent them from bullying and endangering our children.
Very good point. Included in the time you had, feel free to send us any written remarks for us all to look at. Thank you so much, and thanks for waiting so late in the evening.
Thank you very much.
I have Jackie on the line now.
Jackie, I am David Lobowski, I'm Chair of SEAC. Thank you so much for waiting, and feel free to get going when you're ready.
Okay, thank you so much for continuing to be here and to listening to everybody. My name is Jackie, and I have 3 kids in the TDSB. My middle daughter is now in grade 8, struggled greatly with reading. Level readers led to tears and fights, and basic sound and letter combinations were a struggle for many years. In grade 2, she was placed in the Empower program, which was 2 to 3 times a week and about 7 students in a group. We saw no progress in her reading at all upon completion. At the IST meeting following a psych ed assessment of severe dyslexia, which we got privately, we were offered accommodations, software, and a modified academic program. And this is all fine, but how is she going to learn how to read? There was silence. Eventually, the psychologist admitted she needed a high-frequency structured literacy program, but that they couldn't recommend anything because they cannot provide it. I have since learned that what she needed was a Tier 3 reading intervention, one-to-one daily structured literacy program to skills mastery. The tiered approach to intervention estimates that about 5% of students will require such an intervention, and without that intervention, those 5% will be needlessly low literacy, if not illiterate. There are many proven research-based intervention programs, and many are available in school systems all around North America. We theoretically have some of these programs in the TDSB, but they are not offered across the board. There is often no one at schools to administer them, and there are many not offered at a Tier 3 level as they are modified to Tier 2 in order to be offered to more kids but less effectively. The only sure way to access a daily structured literacy intervention is to pay for it privately, which costs tens of thousands of dollars. This, as the Ontario Human Rights Council and the Right to Read report made clear, is a human rights issue. Families who possibly can leave the public system, and many go into debt to teach their children how to read. Those who cannot have children who fall further behind with deteriorating mental health and who frankly hate school. All these children need emergency intervention, and they need it now. My suggestions to mitigate the barrier are: 1, you need to offer reading assessments for students at least up to grade 8, not stopping at grade 2. We've made great strides in the K-2 space for assessment, and that's provincial. But our older kids who went through the pandemic are falling further behind and don't even know who they are. Number 2 suggestion is that we need to have a genuine Tier 3 intervention available for Tier 2 resistant students with structured literacy trained practitioners, 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, administered daily, although that can be in blocks at ours too. We know how to teach these students how to read. This
is David Lepowski. You can start whenever you're ready. And thank you for waiting so late. I believe you are getting the award of our second last speaker. I apologize. It's been such a long way. Sorry, you're muted. We're not here. And can you maybe message her that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I simply.
All right.
Now
Now we can hear you. Now you can start.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the committee to organize this meeting. I have been waiting for this moment for over 4 years. My older daughter is high function autistic with behavioral issue, but her legal rights in TDSB was ignored by the previous high school. The communication between school and family was blocked for different kind of reasons or excuses. The school staff could not communicate with each other properly, which caused a huge emotional damage to my daughter because she's sensitive, so that she quit school for half a year. So I want to advocate for autistic families that as an important role in education for these students, TDSB staff should always aware its social responsibility and improve the service. So I suggest that TDSB can enhance the awareness of the autism. The April 2nd World Autism Day should be announced in a better way than just mentioned in an email to remind the staff and other students that autism is a neurological disorder. It is invisible, but affects how the brain functions. Second, establish a brain communication channel for families to track their children's performance in school by using ABC chart, instead of setting barriers by using wrong terms of learning law or policies. Allow families to volunteer in class sometimes to understand better where their children's strengths and weakness, barriers, and the triggers in TDSB learning environment, so that they can provide valuable feedback or suggestion to the school and discuss with third-party service providers to build, update, and adjust the plan of care and support these vulnerable students on time. Fourth, design a system to collect the tickets from these families to address issue or barriers and use right policies and resources to resolve the issue as quick as possible. And the big database is of these tickets can be further analyzed and provide valuable feedback as well. Our bad experience with TDSB previous high school is documented in Children Aid Society, Ontario Superior Court of Justice, and the mental health care system. But there is no way to hold anyone in TDSB accountability. And about the Ontario, we hold the boundaries for the safety of our children in society. We don't want our children to hurt any people when they're emotional. The 2018 Toronto van attack happened in front of TDSB building is enough to address the issue exists in the system. The early intervention of these autistic people should be very important. These suggestions are made based on my lived experience with my autistic daughter. 15 years working experience in supply chain management, 9 years working experience in TDSB in different positions, and the business management and the personal support worker study in Seneca College, and 4 years volunteer experience in the Toronto Zoo. No matter what organization.
I may interrupt you, and I apologize. If you could just make one more point and then wrap up. Your time's up, and you can send in your reports. Go for it.
Only 2 more sentences.
Sure.
Per minute. No matter what organization or system I deal with, we all somehow related to public education. No matter what TDSB job entails, I feel the quality of internal service in the system can affect me directly or indirectly. Education is the key for all these organizational systems to be successful. So we need a good education and good workers for the sustainable society. So that's what thank you for your listening. Thank you so much. Just a phone, okay? Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, and you got a round of applause. We have one more speaker, is it?
We have two, we have Dora.
Looks like you can, which is not good to confess that you guys speak for our country. All right, tell me when we're ready.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening. I'm David Foster, the chair here, and we welcome you. Feel free to get started. Thanks so much for waiting so long.
No problem. Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Dora. I stand here before you as a parent to advocate for students with special needs / autism who are being failed by the current system due to critical shortages in resources and supports. Too many students are falling through the cracks, which is unacceptable. Schools must be safe with supportive environments, yet staff cuts have created a climate of stress and anxiety for our most vulnerable students, undermining their ability to learn. Furthermore, students are being placed in programs that do not meet their needs, simply because of resource gaps. As well, currently students in mild intellectual disability placements receive far less support than these in developmental disability placements. This inequity must be addressed urgently. Supports are not a luxury. They are a lifeline essential to our children's development, dignity, and future. We cannot afford the consequences. I urge you to invest in our children and restore the support they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For our last person in the waiting room is Millie, or Nellie.
Nellie. All right. Tell me when you're there. Nellie?
Can you hear me?
Here we are. Hi, welcome. I'm David Foster, the chair here. I welcome you. Thank you so much for your patience. For no reason that you are responsible for, you are our last speaker. And we're all going to be listening very attentively, so feel free to get started when you're ready.
Thank you. Very well. Hello, my name is Millie Hutton, and I'm here along with my wife, Marcia, speaking to you this evening in support of the programming my son has received at his school, and why we believe it's essential that this programming continue. We adopted our child at age 10 months, and he's now 16. Along his educational journey, he's faced many challenges within the regular classroom environment. Diagnosed with central auditory processing disorder, ADHD, and mild dyslexia, made life inside the larger classroom impossible for him to navigate. The noise was overwhelming, the pace too fast, and the whole experience of being in a classroom was unpleasant for him, leading him to want to escape and not be part of learning at all. He's a sweet and polite child who found himself frustrated, angry, and upset on an almost daily basis in JK through grade 1. His experience in school was not like his experience in any other environment. He was a volunteer at a local farmers market, a leader in the social air in the school, but in the classroom, frustration and loneliness was his experience. The Toronto District School Board's mission statement is to enable all students to reach high levels of achievement, prioritizing equity, mental health, and inclusive learning environments. In spite of all this, after many meetings in JK, SK, and grade 1, and much effort on our behalf to secure my MP and get him the support he needed, the the principal told us that if you can afford it, you should send your kid to a private school. Our experience was that the TDSB could not provide what our child needed, and so it made it difficult and costly decisions to seek alternative education for him. At our Smith school, we saw how a small classroom with deep understanding of students with special needs could turn kids' experience and learn around. When it came time for him to attend high school, we very nervously looked again into the TDSB. It was then that my wife found the high school that our son now attends. By chance, actually, in a conversation in Dunbar. He attends a small learning community east end of the city that offers schooling at locally developed, workplace, and applied levels. This school has changed our son's life. The teachers are phenomenal. The class sizes are small and allow students with complex profiles to learn. Our son has passed every class, every semester since he arrived in 2024 and is now fully on track to complete his Ontario secondary school diploma next year. He has the possibility of college ahead of him. He is confident and can grasp material well given the environment and support to do so. He gets out of bed every day and goes to school with joy. So why are we here? We recently received a letter from the TDSB that our son's school will not be taking the grade 9 cohort, and the future of the school is in jeopardy. We are here tonight to make the strongest case we can for reversing this thinking. It is not that the schools are not needed. It is that parents do not know where to find them or that they exist. We know from our personal experience that pages hours of trying to find a school that can provide our son what this school has not provided. No one at his TDSB grade 1 school ever suggested or helped us find another TDSB school that might have been suitable. Wouldn't that be obvious that TDSB schools would know how to direct parents to other TDSB schools? We were met like our son was the only elderly child they had ever encountered, and this was just a local TDSB school. Our please don't close these essential schools. Put more time and resources into advertising that they exist. Our runaround inside the TDSB during those pre-high school years was unnecessary, exhausting, and very costly. Please make sure more school-to-school and community connections are made and keep schools open that serve students with special needs with phenomenal staff. We owe our students their education, and we owe them the schools and the teachers that allow them to truly access it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies, as I understand it, we have now gone through our list of presenters. I'm going to take a grant total of 2 minutes to wrap up. And I'm not going to see the motion to adjourn because anyone doesn't want to adjourn, I'll stay. I want to thank everyone here, staff, SEAC members, and most of all, parents and members of the public. Let me get personal for a minute. When I was a kid, I was born with lousy eyesight, and it was getting worse over time. The single reason I was able to succeed is that I had an amazing mom. She was an amazing mom who wanted me to do the best I could do the best I could do, and be the best I could be. But she also, by her example, showed me what it meant to fight, to make sure I got those opportunities. And I missed her every day. But in this room, and over this Zoom, I am being encouraged just like her. I am being encouraged, we are all meeting parents with the same pride, the same passion, the same dedication, the same love, the same capacity, no matter how hard it is, to take that step forward and make that argument or press for that opportunity, no matter how worrisome, uncertain, stressful it all may be. And also, parents who, like my mom, saw that there were good people at the school board who wanted to work with me and wanted to help me succeed. Parents you parents like my mom also knew to recognize where things went well as where things are ridiculously frustrating. And frankly, only say, on behalf of all of your kids, and I want to thank everybody for the time that we spent here. I want to tell you what we were going to do. First item on the agenda at our May meeting is to go around the table and have every member of our SEAC, whether in person or online, simply give their reflections on what they've heard and what they think we need to do next. So it's going to be an open, unregulated discussion where we are going to draw on what all of you said. We've done it before, we're going to do it again. I regret you can't watch us on the TDSB's live stream, but you're all welcome to come here to see what we do. And we're going to work with the staff as best we can to come up with constructive ideas to try to make changes that are within the capacity of the TDSB. The final thing I want to say is this. Having sat through all of this, the only thing any one of us can think, I believe, and speak for all of you, even though I haven't asked you, is it's so important that we have all heard from all these parents. It's so important that they had the opportunity, at least in this room, to hear from each other. I regret online they did. But I say to the 3 senior executives of the Toronto District School Board who are sitting here and are so dedicated to our kids' education. The next time you want to run these meetings, please don't oppose it. Thank you all very much, and I can't be sure this important meeting. We'll see you next time.
Excuse me just a moment.